When Lewis Goodall wrote that the police press conference had become one of the grimmest rituals of British life, he was describing more than procedure. He was describing performance, the microphones, the grim-faced superintendent, the inevitable question about motive and nationality, all are now part of a dark choreography suited by our age of suspicion, shaped and designed by that age. And after the Huntingdon train attack, that performance was intensified by the pressure to preempt the mob online. And once the police might have withheld details of ethnicity or nationality until the facts were known, today they're compelled to disclose them early, a defensive gesture against the wildfire of disinformation that races across the social platforms now dominated by the far right. When Superintendent Alan Lovelace stated within hours that the suspects were British nationals, British born, he was not merely offering clarification, he was extinguishing a fuse. But the fuse was already burning elsewhere. On Laura Kuenssberg's programme yesterday morning, Reform UK's Zia Yusuf attempted what might have seemed a nuanced point about atrocities and public anxiety, yet by referring obliquely to other violent acts, before the details of the case were known, he connected dots that should never have been joined. The implication was subtle, but not innocent. It played on the same emotional circuitry, the same emotional grid that Goodall warns about, the presumption that violence must somehow belong to an other. The other coming, as far as Zia Yusuf and the Reform are concerned, coming across the channel. Yusuf's intervention was artful but dangerous. He invoked restraint while stirring the very prejudice he professed to avoid. Like others in Reform's orbit, he understands the new rhetorical economy of outrage. One need not make a direct accusation. One only need suggest that something unspeakable is being said or unsaid. That tactic doesn't rely on evidence. It relies on the reader's imagination and their fear and their ability to put two and two together and make five. Goodall's essay in the I paper today, there are three brilliant articles in the I today, and I'm going to look at all three. Goodall's essay identifies a key pathology of our political moment: ethnicity as presumption, citizenship as conditional. And when figures like Matthew Goodwin claim that a piece of paper doesn't make someone British, they reintroduce a racial test of belonging. It is a sinister inversion of Enlightenment principle. Identity reduced to blood rather than contract, appearance rather than allegiance, and yet this is not fringe talk anymore. It is repeated by commentators who once moved in academic or journalistic respectability. It slides through the discourse of mainstream conservatism, often in genteel language about integration or values, but the subtext is the same. The multicultural Britain is a failed experiment, that violence is the symptom and that a reckoning is due. And that is why police now preempt the rumours with statements about whiteness or British birth. It's not an attempt to racialise crime, but to prevent racialising it. It's a defensive transparency in a culture addicted to conspiracy. And yet, even this cannot escape distortion. The very act of denying that an attacker is an immigrant becomes, in the rhetoric of the online right, proof that the establishment is covering something up. Goodall is right to point out that platforms such as X, Twitter, have transformed from news forums into radicalization machines. Elon Musk's hands-off moderation policy has allowed the most hateful narratives to gain algorithmic privilege. What was once marginal, the idea of civil war, of racial conflict as destiny, now circulates freely among blue-ticked accounts, some linked to conservative politics. The rhetoric of Enoch Powell, once condemned, has returned in digital form. Oh, British born? Maybe, but what about his parents? When did they come here? And the damage, as Goodall implies, is cumulative. Every time a tragedy occurs, the same cycle repeats, a vacuum of fact filled by assertion. A community blamed before truth emerges, a country further divided. It's the slow corrosion of civic trust. When what Lewis Goodall's piece captures, and what Zia Yusuf's appearance inadvertently demonstrates, is that Britain's moral compass is being warped by the politics of prejudgment. We are encouraged to fear one another first and think later. The space between tragedy and interpretation, once reserved for silence, reflection, or compassion, is now filled by ideological calculation. There is, however, one fragile consolation. By observing who rushes to assign blame, who cannot wait for truth before outrage, we glimpse the contours of a new moral map. We see who profits from fear, who thrives on fracture, and who still believes that citizenship in all its complexity and diversity means something more than colour or creed. If the Huntingdon attacks reveal anything beyond their horror, it is this, that the real test of a society is not how it responds to violence, but how it resists the temptation to dehumanize in its aftermath, and on that measure our politics has much to answer for.